New setup here. I'm in a different place, but same topic. The 49ers playoff Sunday night against the Denver Broncos in their first primetime game of the year. I'm here to break it down for you, answer all your questions, and really talk about the Jimmy Garoppolo talk that's been going on for a little bit, both about him and Kyle Shanahan, and then the reports that dropped today about him and the Washington Commanders. All after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It is just me today. We'll see if Marco can hop on, but happy Sunday morning. It's game day. The early slate of games are going on. Currently here, I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, not my regular Madison, Wisconsin, but it's 12:30 p.m. Just wanted to get you guys a preview, give you guys my thoughts on the 49ers Broncos Sunday night game. We've got 49ers throwback in the building. Always appreciate when you hop on. Thank you for tuning in. But like I said, the 49ers, they're playing the Broncos on Sunday night this week. You saw bets go from a plus 2.5 to now a negative 1.5, meaning the 49ers are favored to win this game by 1.5 points, which is a pretty high swing, and it's interesting development for sure. Going back to when the schedule dropped back in the offseason, I had predicted the 49ers to lose this game. This would have been their first loss in my predictions. Now, obviously, we know the 49ers lost to the Chicago Bears. They're standing at 1-1. The Broncos are also standing at 1-1, losing to the Seattle Seahawks. Another unexpected loss in week 1 before barely beating the Houston Texans in week 2 with a shaky offensive performance. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the Denver offense, Denver defense, as well as our offense and defense, and see where the real advantages are. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with the quarterbacks right on each side. Obviously, for the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is now back in the fold after Trey Lance injured his ankle, a fractured ankle. I think the exact injury was a fibula injury and a couple of other shattered injuries or something like that. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. Kyle Shanahan confirmed that he's out for the season. They placed him on IR already. And so we have a new quarterback situation. Jimmy Garoppolo is the one. Brock Purdy is now the 2, and then Kurt Benkert, who the 49ers signed this past week, is the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart. And so what are we going to expect from Jimmy Garoppolo this week? Well, it's an interesting topic because when you look about it, when you look at the comments this week that Jimmy Garoppolo made, he insinuated that he might have been held back by Kyle Shanahan in this offense. Uh, Facing back to 2017 when Jimmy Garoppolo was inserted after injuries to the quarterbacks in that last 5-game stretch where he went 5-0. Jimmy Garoppolo was a new quarterback learning a new offense after he was acquired midseason. To me, that period is somewhat of an anomaly. Why? Defenses couldn't prepare for Jimmy Garoppolo because there was really no film on Jimmy Garoppolo dating back to his Patriots days. There were only like 4 games. And then also there was no film on Jimmy Garoppolo in the Kyle Shanahan system, meaning the 49ers really could reincorporate different elements. And so that's why maybe you might have seen a more free Jimmy Garoppolo. But if you look at the statistics and really look at how those games went, while it did inspire hope in the 49ers fans because they went 5-0 in that stretch after starting the season 1-10, Jimmy Garoppolo was not a top 5 quarterback or anything like that. He was not a super inspiring quarterback during that stretch. Still threw for only 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in a 5-game stretch. Pretty. It's not reckless, and you wouldn't call him a gunslinger necessarily, but it's not like elite level stats. It's that uh it's what you kind of expected from Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, he did throw for 260 yards per game in those 5 games, something higher, a higher mark that you've seen, maybe a little more, a couple of more throws per game in those in that stretch of games that Jimmy Garoppolo played. But now you look at the last 4 years. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously making the playoffs in 2 of those 4 years, being injured in the other 2 of the 4 years. Do you think that Kyle Shanahan has held Jimmy Garoppolo back? When I look at it, no. When you look at the specific elements that Kyle Shanahan has implemented, that shot play to Brandon Ayuk was open so many times last season. It's like fans forget in a way that Jimmy Garoppolo just didn't throw the shot play. It either he progressed through that read and chose not to throw the ball, or he never progressed to that read in general. We saw it. It was deep crosses over the middle. It was shot plays to the outside. That shot play has been implemented in the Kyle Shanahan offense. It's not like Kyle Shanahan is telling Jimmy Garoppolo to limit his downfield shots. It's unfortunately just not a part of Jimmy Garoppolo's normal skill set. And while I'm not going to say that he can't throw the deep ball, that's inaccurate. Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown the deep ball before, but the point in the NFL is not to be able to throw the deep ball. It's to throw it consistently and be able to accurately hit your targets with by throwing it on a rope, not throwing it with zip, and not being having to float the ball and letting defenders catch up to receivers on the play who are normally wide open on some of these shot plays. So that's the issue with Jimmy Garoppolo. He hasn't been able to consistently hit the ball. The numbers reflect that. My guy Javi Vega posted a graphic where you saw down the field, Jimmy Garoppolo did struggle compared to obviously the middle of the field passes, the intermediate passes. Jimmy Garoppolo does struggle when trying to target down the field. So to me, I don't think that Kyle Shanahan has limited Jimmy Garoppolo. I think fans are just forgetting how statistics have gone. And because Jimmy Garoppolo is talking about this freer style, when you look at it, last week, the reason for a freer style, Kyle Shanahan said it bluntly, which was very interesting to me because that seems like there's somewhat of a divide between the two. He said that Jimmy Garoppolo was just operating under somebody else's game plan. The game plan that Jimmy Garoppolo came into the game with, that was for Trey Lance. And to me, still, I didn't think that that was anything out of the ordinary, right? It was Kyle Shanahan scheming up open receivers and Jimmy Garoppolo hitting open passes, right? On that first touchdown drive, 3-play, 66-yard touchdown drive, the receivers were open on the plays. Jimmy Garoppolo hit the throws. That was a good job by him, but also it was a good job by Kyle Shanahan. And then when you look on the next drive, obviously everybody remembers the 40-yard bomb to Brandon Ayuk on the back shoulder. Yeah, I mean, that play, Trey Lance likely hits it. And it's not like Jimmy Garoppolo didn't hit it. It was a well-timed throw, well-placed throw. Brandon Ayuk got to obviously corral that in. But in a way, Jimmy Garoppolo, that's not normally a part of his skill set. Now, let me say this. While I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo has been limited in his skill set and while that Kyle Shanahan has not held him back, I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo, if he's able to incorporate a part of this into his game, while he may not be efficient or accurate on a majority of these throws, him throwing the deep ball at least provides some element of that possibility in the 49ers offense. And that's the main goal that the 49ers should try and achieve. Why? Because if you can at least show the presence of a threat that the deep ball can be incorporated into Jimmy Garoppolo's style, then defenses can't really cheat like they normally do with Jimmy Garoppolo in the run game. They can't stack the box. They can't bring safeties closer because they have to account for that deep threat to limit the explosive play. And so that's why I think there's optimism maybe, and maybe there is an extra ceiling to reach in this 49ers offense. If Garoppolo can somehow turn that leaf and push the ball downfield a little more, go past his somewhat conservative tendencies, push the ball downfield a little more, and put the ball out of harm's way. However, we've seen the results before. That's why I do caution the expectations for the deep throw because we've seen the results before and they haven't been pretty. It just hasn't been accurate and it hasn't been consistent when throwing that deep ball. Obviously, everybody remembers the ball to Emmanuel Sanders, but overall, when you look at the overall body of work, it hasn't been accurate, hasn't been consistent. And so that's been the issue with Jimmy Garoppolo and the deep ball and his so-called freedom when you pass when he's passing in that way. So if that element can be incorporated, that's great. It's going to push the 49ers offense to a higher ceiling than expected, but in the expected light that it doesn't, because it's not a regularly incorporated concept in the offense, because Jimmy Garoppolo either overlooks those reads or doesn't look or just isn't enough to hit those reads or misses the reads when he looks for them, then it's going to be tougher for Kyle Shanahan to game plan because defenses are going to dare the 49ers to throw the ball. They're going to stack the box, trying to eliminate the presence of the run, even without Elijah Mitchell, given how well the 49ers can run the football with their pulling concepts with their offensive linemen and stuff like that. Additionally, got to give a shout out to Mariah. Thank you always for tuning in. Doing great over here in Wisconsin. It's been a blast and definitely missing my 49er people, missing my guys back home. But, it's been a blast. I'm enjoying my time and still got to rep the 49ers. Got to make sure I put out the content so that everybody here definitely gets a blast out of it. But moving forward from the concept of Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, let's look at the other part because to me, I think the run game is going to be a huge part of this. When you look at both of these teams, my guy Jack Hammer put out a stat earlier this week. Both of these teams are one of four teams where there are two 100-yard rushers on the team. One of four teams in the NFL because Denver has Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Both have rushed for over 100 yards this year. And the 49ers, I believe, I think it's Deebo Samuel and Jeff Wilson Jr. Both of them have rushed for over 100 yards this year as well. So both have what the point I'm trying to make is both aren't one-dimensional rushing attacks. They have multiple players that can really be incorporated in the offense, and it's going to be interesting to see how either team stops the run in this game. Both run games have been fairly prolific up to date. I know that Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams weren't used as much necessarily, especially in goal line situations, which has been intriguing so far. The play calling, obviously, coming out of Denver, but I do expect them to be big factors in this game. And I think that, they're high efficiency players. Javonte Williams in his 22 carries has rushed for 5.4 yards per carry. Melvin Gordon in his 22 carries rushed for 4.8 yards per carry. When you combine them, it's over 100 yards per game for in the ground. They average 126 yards per game. It's a pretty prolific rushing attack with pretty high efficiency. And so the 49ers do have a tough task, and this is only going to get tougher if Ark Armstead, who right now I believe is still suffering from injury, questionable to play, but one report did say that he is iffy to play. We'll see if he suits up for the 49ers. I'm not expecting it, given that he was out, I believe, on Friday. So we'll see if he plays. But if not, it's going to be Kevin Givens and Hassan Ridgeway, opposite of Javon Kinlaw, stepping in that defensive tackle role. We'll see how that incorporates. But the 49ers, they're going to have to stop the run if they want to make things tougher for Russell Wilson and company, because Russell Wilson has certainly given fits, right? He's athletic enough to avoid pressure. He can extend plays, and that extended playability obviously can lead to busted coverages and things like that. So it's going to be a tougher task for the 49ers, probably their toughest task to date, obviously, now that they face the Chicago Bears and Seattle Seahawks, because now you have a strong, multifaceted offense. But let's not sugarcoat it, right? The Denver Bronco offense has also struggled, despite their strong rushing attack. Russell Wilson has not been himself so far. He's averaged 280 yards per game. Like he's statistically, you might say that he's been fine, but overall, the Denver Broncos have only averaged 16 points per game. Really have stalled at times. And when you look at their passing attack, it's either been sometimes deep shots or screen passes. It's kind of been a pretty stale offense so far. Nathaniel Hackett has been he's the new head coach over there in Denver. I believe he's the one calling plays, and they also have a new offensive coordinator. They have a new coaching staff all around. Hackett did hire a new guy this week, I believe, to help him with what he called his game time situations. Um, if we look at it, I forget his name, Jerry Roseberg. Yeah, Jerry Roseberg. Hackett kind of backed it up. He said he in a way wanted to improve that facet, backed it up with a well-respected coach. We'll see if if that change makes any result in or in week 3. But overall, that offense has been stale. Can that offense obviously reach heights? Yeah, they've got Cortland Sutton, they've got Jerry Jeudy, and even KJ Hamler out of the slot. And all three of them can really incorporate themselves out of the slot, while obviously having a strong rushing attack with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, both of whom can work really in all facets of the game, including at the goal line. So we'll see how this Denver Broncos offense can respond in week 3 against a tough 49ers defense, which has been lights out. But when you look at the 49ers rushing attack, Jeff Wilson Jr. expected to lead the team again this week, but the backups are going to be new. Both the backups for the 49ers this week have not seen a single carry yet for the 49ers this year. Tyrone Davis-Price was last week's backup, had 14 carries for 33 yards, but suffered, believe, a high ankle sprain, which is going to require him to miss a couple of weeks. Was not placed on IR because the 49ers obviously have had a good amount of IR injuries already, trying to preserve those IR spots for later on in the year if needed, because you only, I believe, get 8 IR spots in the entire year. Have already used one on Jimmy Ward, have already used who else got one? I forget. Ooh, uh, not George Kittle, but Jimmy Ward, I believe, is the main one so far that they've used. They've had a couple of injuries, though, right? Daniel Brunskill has been injured for the entirety of the year so far, but did not be placed on IR. Tyler Croft had a sprained MCL this past week, but he is not going to be going on IR. So now you have these 3 injured players who are not going on IR. In addition, on the injury report this week, Colton McKivitz is injured. We'll see if he plays as well. Him and Armstead are the 2 questionable ones heading into the week. But looking at our rushing attack, going back to my point, the 2 backups this week are going to be Marlon Mack, who the team signed to the practice squad last week and now elevated to the active roster this week, as well as Jordan Mason, who has been active, I believe, for the entire year in the last 2 games, but has only played on special teams. Played 8 special team snaps in last week. So it's going to be very interesting to see who's going to be RB2. Earlier this week on Jack's show, I thought that Jordan Mason was getting the carries early before Marlon Mack would be kind of getting that second team carries on offense, just because he's been in the offense this entire offseason. We've seen he's really performed well when he's been given the opportunity. I hope the 49ers give him that opportunity because I think that he's got the juice in him. He's going to perform well if given the opportunity. It might take some growing pains, but I think he's going to perform well if he gets the opportunity to be that backup. But the 49ers, I think, are going to ride with the hot hand again. Last week, they rode with Tyrone Davis-Price the entire time. Let's see how the carry distribution is going to be in week 3. Marlon Mack obviously has a ton of experience and also has a different element to his game. He's probably the fastest running back now on the roster. Of the 3 that are going to be active this week, I think Marlon Mack has that ability. He's still fairly young. I believe he's only 26 and has had 1,000-yard season under his belt as well. He has experience, so he should be incorporated as well in the offense. Let's see how this 3-headed rushing attack will go. The 49ers also lost a huge part of their rushing attack in Trey Lance because he and Deebo Samuel were the 2 leading rushers in week 1 for the team, and Lance had 3 rushes last week. But I think that that's going to mean you rely on the backups a little more, and you also rely on Deebo Samuel, who has been a key part of the rushing attack last week. A 51-yard rush. Really, he made something out of nothing. He had close to 3 to 5 defenders on him near the backfield, but it was elusive. One of the most elusive plays of his career, maybe the most elusive play of his career. Made something out of nothing, got 51 yards on the play, and really prolonged one of the 49er drives on one of those QB options with Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel. But moving forward, the 49ers rushing attack, definitely seeing some new faces, but I do still expect them to be able to rush the ball well. When you look at the Denver Broncos in the last 2 weeks, they've been a fairly solid rush defense. You look last week to the Houston Texans, they gave up 4.4 yards per carry. Dameon Pierce had 15 carries for 69 yards, but the Houston Texans kind of playing in a way with negative game pace. Had Davis Mills 38 times, only rushed 18 times. In both weeks, they've had opposing offenses kind of throw the ball more than rush the ball. I don't think that that's the case with the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to throw the ball. When you look back in week 1, the Denver Bronco defense only allowed 4 yards per carry, but starter Rashad Penny had 12 carries for 60 yards. Running backs have been efficient when facing this Denver Bronco defense, but they haven't seen enough volume to maybe make a standout game for the 49ers. And I don't think there's going to be one player that necessarily stands out. Obviously, Jeff Wilson Jr. should get a brunt of the load, but I still think that overall this 49ers rushing attack should be fairly efficient in week 3 and should be more incorporated than what Denver has seen the past 2 weeks in the rushing game. Looking at the 49ers and the Broncos receivers now, let's first start with the Denver Broncos because they have a little more of a wild card in a way. Jerry Jeudy injured himself last week, was out for the remainder of the game last week. People didn't expect him to play, but Benjamin Albright, one of the Broncos insiders, did say that Jerry Jeudy is expected to play this week alongside Cortland Sutton. So the Broncos have their top two receivers here. Obviously, they lost Tim Patrick in the offseason for the season with a I believe what was an ACL injury. Terrible news for Tim Patrick, but the Denver Broncos have their top two options. They're going to be deep threats. They're going to be incorporated as well out of the slot. So the 49ers need to be prepared for these two options because both of them are pretty damn good receivers. Additionally, they have Speedster, KJ Hamler. So it's a pretty solid receiving core for Russell Wilson. Will the offense become less predictable? Will they not incorporate just straight up one-on-one deep balls? Will they incorporate more routes over the middle of the field? How will Denver respond in week 3 with the entirety of their receiving core? Looking at the 49ers, obviously Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, it's going to be a tough matchup. Well, tough matchup for Denver defense, but they've got Patrick Surtain, who is expected to play as well as Jerry Jeudy. Practiced in limited fashion, I believe, on Friday. Was the one more expected to play. He's good to go. So Jerry Jeudy, not Jerry Jeudy, Patrick Surtain is likely to line up against one of the top two receivers for the 49ers. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Can the 49ers win that matchup? That could go a long way into how this goes. But Kyle Shanahan can scheme receivers open and will exploit the matchups. Let's see if one of these two receivers is incorporated more out of the slot for the Denver against the Denver Broncos. But yeah, Patrick Surtain is expected to play. That should be one of the intriguing matchups. And similarly, on the other side, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. 49ers have two top cornerbacks in Emmanuel Mosley and Travarius Ward, Mooney Ward over there. So those two, it's going to be another nice matchup. It's going to be a very good battle between the cornerbacks and the receivers, I think, in this one. That's kind of what's going to dictate kind of the offensive game pace in the air. Who's going to win the battle? So far for the 49ers defense, it's been their quarterbacks winning that battle last week against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Yes, Lockett had a 100-yard game, but a lot of that was in the short game, not necessarily intermediate and deep down the field. There weren't many plays. Yes, Mosley did commit a PI, but the 49ers only limited the Seattle Seahawks 7 points last week because they were able to limit explosive plays. Can Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy create those explosive plays when receivers haven't been able to and quarterbacks haven't been able to against this 49ers defense yet? Again, another challenge remained to be seen in this highly anticipated Denver Broncos 49ers matchup on Sunday Night Football. One element in this game that could be an X factor for the 49ers. Cornerback Samuel Womack. He has been, I think he's only given up 36 yards combined in his first 2 weeks. He hasn't been targeted has been utilized in an interesting role, obviously, as a nickelback, been seen in some blitz packages, been seen in coverage. He's going to be a factor in this game because we've seen Jerry Jeudy line up against us in the slot, one of the better route runners in general, and that's going to be a tough matchup for Samuel Womack. Last week, he saw some action against Tyler Lockett in the slot as well. Obviously, you have great help in Talanoa Hufanga, who played a very nice game in week 2. His potentially, I mean, I said it, he's been the MVP for the 49ers defense so far in this kind of matchup. Or not, sorry, in this kind of season. So it's been a good year for this 49ers secondary so far, after obviously seeing Josh Norman, after seeing Drake Kirkpatrick at times, after seeing Deommodore Lenoir in his rookie season, Ambry Thomas in his rookie season. Been a good bounce back for the 49ers secondary so far for sure. Other thoughts on Samuel Womack, though. Obviously facing a tough matchup in Jerry Jeudy. I think that, the 49ers, D'Amico Ryans is going to have to scheme well so that Womack isn't left necessarily on an island against guys like Jerry Jeudy. But overall, the 49ers have shown that they can create those matchups. Deshaun Gibson, obviously, can play the deep end, should be able to help limit those explosive plays. That's another thing as well. Got to give a shout out to David Villa. Thank you so much for tuning in as well. And then here we've got a comment. Jimmy G already expired. Cal scripted offense holds Jimmy G back with contract season, no tag, no trade clock, and Jimmy G controls the team. Jimmy G will cook. I'm hoping that Garoppolo cooks. I hope that he gets the contract that he wants, but I don't think that he's really the scripted offense has held Garoppolo back. I said this earlier in the stream. That deep play, that deep shot has really been an element in this offense pretty much since Kyle Shanahan's been here. We've seen it in clips that Brandon Ayuk has been wide open last year on that deep shot on the deep corner route between the safety and the linebacker. It's just Garoppolo while he reads the play, progresses past that read because he doesn't have necessarily the necessary zip to consistently hit Brandon Ayuk on that throw. Yes, has he hit it before? Yes, but he doesn't have the necessary zip or the necessary arm strength to consistently hit that throw. The issue isn't that he can't make one play. The issue is, can he consistently make that play to make it a somewhat of a threat to force defenses to adjust? That hasn't been the case yet. And so while the deep shot has been incorporated, while Kyle Shanahan has schemed the deep shot open, Garoppolo hasn't necessarily consistently been able to deliver with that deep shot as a part of the offense. So to me, I have to wait till I see it. If Garoppolo now has changed his mindset in a way to incorporate the deep shot, to at least give it a test, I think that that can push the 49ers ceiling if he can at least be consistent with it. But history shows that he hasn't been consistent with it, and I think that that's a factor that the 49ers, in this 49ers debate. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan has really held him back. I think that the option has been there. It's just Garoppolo hasn't necessarily taken it, which is why I found his comments a bit confusing. However, the one comment that I will make about this Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan debate, I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo has the trust necessarily of Kyle Shanahan. We've seen that Kyle Shanahan has played conservative with Jimmy Garoppolo with game pace or with game script at times. Now, do I think that he's been limiting Garoppolo? No, but maybe an increased amount of trust after mistakes, especially. Could potentially prolong this 49ers offense, but we've had a working formula. I don't think that that can be debated. The 49ers have worked while letting Jimmy Garoppolo operate in this offense with Kyle Shanahan creating open looks in Garoppolo's over the middle of the field in Garoppolo's kind of bread and butter so that the 49ers offense can move. I don't think that that can be debated either, given the 49ers success in the 2 seasons that he's been healthy. Looking at the last part of the 49ers and the Broncos preview, let's look at the 49ers defense versus the Broncos offense and vice versa in different aspects. Let's look we've obviously talked about the secondary now. Let's look at the linebackers, let's look at the defensive line. Obviously no Ark Armstead, he's questionable right now, but the linebackers I think for the Denver Broncos are what might break this game as well because that's kind of the weak spot for this Denver Broncos team. When you look at the pass rushers, right? Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb, that's a pretty dominant duo on opposite sides of each other. That's going to be nice. DJ Jones is on the inside, Draymond Jones as well on the inside. You have a pretty strong core with that defensive line that can potentially stop the run, or at least has players that have been capable of stopping the run, obviously, in DJ Jones, as well as pretty solid pass rushers with guys like Chubb, with guys like Randy Gregory. In the back end, you have Pat Surtain. You have guys like Ronald Darby. Obviously, in the slot, you have K'Wan Williams, former 49er who signed with the Denver Broncos in 2022 on a one-year deal. You also have Kareem Jackson. No Justin Simmons, which is going to be a big thing. He's obviously on IR, but you have Kareem Jackson, a pretty strong core there as well. But looking at the linebackers, Alex Singleton, Josie Jewell, even guys that the 49ers know, and Jonas Griffith, I think that that's where the 49ers should look to really kind of attack as an offense because, like I just said, where does Jimmy Garoppolo operate the best out of? In the middle of the field, between the numbers in the intermediate range. And that's where these linebackers are going to be possessed. I think Kyle Shanahan will try and test these linebackers in the passing game to force the Denver Bronco defense to adjust and potentially shave off a little bit to help kind of facilitate the run game a little more. Because obviously, to account for that, you might need to play some more zone coverage. You might need to protect the middle of the field a little better, which might require less in the box, lesser aggressive of an approach by the Denver Bronco defense. We'll see how they adjust to that. But Kyle Shanahan should be able to utilize the Denver Bronco linebackers and his ability to scheme receivers open to his advantage. We saw that against the Los Angeles Rams last year. That was also the weakness kind of that team. And we saw how the 49ers were able to incorporate the middle of the field in their regular season wins against the Los Angeles Rams. But overall, that's another aspect of the Kyle Shanahan game. I think that is where really he's going to operate. And this kind of leads me to this point right here. Somebody I haven't talked about yet, George Kittle, is going to make his return, his 2022 season debut. And where does George Kittle like to operate? Over the middle of the field. He could be a potential big time target for Jimmy Garoppolo and company this week. I think that with this offense right now, I think that it's a little unpredictable as to who's going to be the big time target because you've got three players now that Garoppolo in a way has shown confidence that he can deliver to. Brandon Ayuk had 5 catches, 62 yards, while many thought he'd be hampered by Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe I don't think that that's going to be the case this year. I think Ayuk's route tree has progressed. I think he's really gotten the confidence of everybody in that room to where he doesn't just run deeper routes; he runs all sorts of routes. Was the highest targeted and highest he got the highest yards for the 49ers last week with Garoppolo playing 3.5 quarters. Five receptions, like I said, for 62 yards. I think that he could be a factor. Obviously, Deebo Samuel, one of Garoppolo's favorite targets over the middle of the field, is always a factor. He hasn't necessarily seen as much volume in the receiving game yet, or at least as much action compared to the rushing game. But I think that Deebo Samuel is always a threat in general. And then George Kittle, he operates over the middle of the field. I think that he's another big target that could potentially see some action as well for the 49ers. But all three have potential to obviously score that touchdown. Will George Kittle get a touchdown? I'm not necessarily sure. We'll see how much the 49ers utilize him, but it would obviously be great given the last time the 49ers played the Denver Broncos, he had a monster game. I think that was in 2018, maybe 2018, where he had a monster game against the Denver Broncos. We'll see if he can really reincorporate revitalize himself into that kind of opportunity this week. But that's going to do it for the recap for me. Thank you guys all for tuning in and obviously all for dropping your comments and questions. Appreciate everybody that tunes in. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video. Always appreciate all the help to the channel and supporting the content. And also check us out on Apple Podcasts. That's where we also post these shows. Just help us out with a download. That's really what we would highly appreciate. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week, probably on Monday. Look out for me on Sunil's show or me and Marco. We're gonna be recapping this game and seeing the highs and lows of the Jimmy Garoppolo 3.0 experience pretty much. Thank you guys.